Show. I am your host, Christene Marie. Y'all, what a privilege it is to be here with you all today. This is just a reminder of taking a pause and remembering the truth about who you are, whose we belong to, and our identity. So much of our lives are just lived on autopilot. We live running through so quickly the list that's handed to us that we've created maybe at the beginning of the weekend, especially on Friday. It's the 121st day of the year, and it is Friday, May 1st today. So we are entering into a new month and closing out the week. And y'all, this is just our time to literally take a pause, to take a couple deep breaths. Even before I join every single show, I actually with guests will take a pause and we'll close our eyes and I'll actually say a prayer, because this show is so important. You know, the time that we take every morning is so important to really enter together into this. You know, even as I said, enter together. Yesterday we were talking about this, both in the show last night with my sister, which was the biggest privilege to do a show with her. But also yesterday morning, we're talking about coming from this place of rest in our conversations, where we're operating from a place of basically like the confidence and quiet peace that comes from knowing who we are, whose we are, and even why are we here. This morning, I had this opportunity to just share my why again. Today is day 1 of 61, our 61-day challenge. For those of you who want to join, it's not too late. But we are starting our 61-day challenge today. And so this morning, I had everybody share who they are and their why. And there's a small group, which I actually really appreciate because it allows for intimacy. And this morning I was reminded, oh yeah, this is why I'm here. This is why this morning I woke up earlier than I normally do, and I was so grateful for that. This is why we wake up. This is why we cultivate ourselves. This is why even having children, like, do you have a why for having kids? Do you have a why for the profession that you're entering into? Do you have a why that compels you in everything that we do? And so with that why in mind, I'm just going to go ahead and introduce the show today, the Knowing Show, especially in the mornings, but the Knowing Show in general. We spend time to cultivate the human intelligence in an AI, artificial intelligence world. And the 4 intelligences are intellectual, emotional, spiritual, and physical intelligences. And we have access to every single one. The goal is that we have a somewhat balanced cultivation of each one, so we don't err more heavily in one or another. And we see this so much in life, where you engage with somebody and they've really only cultivated their intellect, or you meet somebody and they've only cultivated their spirit. Rather, it's how do I allow for every part of the human being to be cultivated, to have a seat at the table. I like to think of each intelligence as a director, a boardroom. In the boardroom, a director who has a seat at the table, who comes in and tells me what it knows, the data that it knows. And then you and I get the opportunity to choose what our response is going to be, to take right action, to plan our lives accordingly. But we have access to all the data. So often parts of us remain dormant or asleep for so long. And so the goal is to awaken each part so that we have access to what all of us has to say, and then we can make an intelligent decision. So we are going to, here in the morning show, we go through A Course in Miracles, and we are going to go through lesson 121. But before we do, I'm going to go ahead and just give just a quick review of some of the preceding lessons. Lesson 91, miracles are seen in light. Lesson 92, miracles are seen in light, and light and strength are one. Lesson 93, light and joy and peace abide in me. Lesson 94, I am as God created me. Lesson 95, I am oneself, united with my Creator. Lesson 96, salvation comes from my oneself. Lesson 97, I am one spirit. Lesson 98, I will accept my part in God's plan for salvation. Lesson 99, salvation is my only function here. Lesson 100, my part is essential to God's plan for salvation. Lesson 101, God's will for me is perfect happiness. Lesson 102, I share God's will for happiness for me. Lesson 103, God being love is also happiness. Lesson 104, I seek but what belongs to me in truth. Lesson 105, God's peace and joy are mine. Lesson 106, let me be still and listen to the truth. Lesson 107, truth will correct all errors in my mind. Lesson 108, to give and to receive are one in truth. Lesson 109, I rest in God. Lesson 110, I am as God created me. And then we are jumping into today's review for today's lesson, lesson 121. Forgiveness is the key to happiness. Here is the answer to your search for peace. Here is the key to meaning in a world that seems to make no sense. Here is the way to safety in apparent dangers that appear to threaten you at every turn and bring uncertainty to all your hopes of ever finding quietness and peace. Here are all questions answered. Here the end of all certainty ensured at last. The unforgiving mind is full of fear and offers love no room to be itself, no place where it can spread its wings in peace and soar above the turmoil of the world. The unforgiving mind is sad, without hope of respite and release from pain. It suffers and abides in misery, peering in darkness, seeing not, yet certain of the danger lurking there. The unforgiving mind is torn with doubt and confused about itself and all it sees, afraid and angry, weak and blustering, afraid to go ahead, afraid to stay, afraid to waken, or afraid to sleep. Afraid of every sound, yet more afraid of stillness, terrified of darkness, yet more terrified at the approach of light. What can the unforgiving mind perceive but its damnation? What can it behold except the proof that all its sins are real? The unforgiving mind sees no mistakes but only sins. It looks upon the world with sightless eyes and shrieks as it beholds its own projections rising to attack its miserable parody of life. It wants to live, yet wishes it were dead. It wants forgiveness, yet it sees no hope. It wants escape, yet can conceive of none because it sees the sinful everywhere. The unforgiving mind is in despair, without the prospect of a future which can offer anything but more despair. Yet it regards its judgment of the world as irreversible and does not see it has condemned itself to this despair. It thinks it cannot change, for what it sees bears witness that its judgment is correct. It does not ask because it thinks it knows. It does not question, certain it is right. Forgiveness is acquired. It is not inherent in the mind, which cannot sin. As sin is an idea you taught yourself, forgiveness must be learned by you as well, but from a teacher other than yourself, who represents the other self in you. Through him, you learn how to forgive the self you think you made and let it disappear. Thus you return your mind as one to him who is yourself and who can never sin. Each unforgiving mind presents you with an opportunity to teach your own how to forgive itself. Each one awaits release from hell through you and turns to you imploringly for heaven here and now. It has no hope, but you become its hope. And as its hope, do you become your own. The unforgiving mind must learn through your forgiveness that it has been saved from hell. And as you teach salvation, you will learn. Yet all your teaching and your learning will be not of you, but of the teacher who has given you to show you the way. Today we practice learning to forgive. If you are willing, you can learn today to take the key to happiness and use it on your own behalf. We will devote 10 minutes in the morning and at night another 10 to learning how to give forgiveness and receive forgiveness too. The unforgiving mind does not believe that giving and receiving are the same. Yet we will try to learn today that they are one through practicing forgiveness toward one whom you think of as an enemy and one whom you consider as a friend. And as you learn to see them both as one, we will extend the lesson toward yourself and see that their escape included yours. Begin the longer practice periods by thinking of someone you do not like. who seems to irritate you or to cause regret in you if you should meet him, one you actively despise or merely try to overlook. It does not matter what the form your anger takes. You have probably chosen him already. He will do. Now close your eyes and see him in your mind and look at him a while. Try to perceive some light in him somewhere, a little gleam which you had never noticed. Try to find some little spark of brightness shining through the ugly picture that you hold of him. Look at this picture till you see a light somewhere within it, and then try to let this light extend until it covers him and makes the picture beautiful and good. Look at this changed perception for a while and turn your mind to one you call a friend. Try to transfer the light you learned to see around your former enemy to him. Perceive him now as more than a friend to you, for in that light his holiness shows you your Savior, saved and saving, healed and whole. Then let him offer you the light you see in him, and let your enemy and friend unite in blessing you with what you gave. Now you are one with them, and they are with you. Now have you been forgiven by yourself. Do not forget throughout the day the role forgiveness plays in bringing happiness to every unforgiving mind, and with yours among them. Every hour tell yourself, forgiveness is the key to happiness. I will awaken from the dream that I am mortal, fallible, and full of sin, and know I am the perfect Son of God. Wow. There's so much here. I want to go back and read marks of the unforgiving mind. Y'all, for those of you who have been around here in the Knowing Show over the last couple of months, you know that we talk about the marks, the fruit of when somebody is living in health versus unhealth. So a healthy mind, a healthy spirit. Specifically in terms of the spirit, there are 9 fruits, 9 characteristics of somebody who is healthy spiritually, and that is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. All of those are the marks of someone who is healthy spiritually. It's along and akin to the concept, you shall know a tree by its fruit. Those are the fruits. And the unforgiving mind has fruits too. The unforgiving mind is torn with doubt, confused about itself and all it sees, afraid and angry, weak and blustering, afraid to go ahead, afraid to stay, afraid to waken or to go to sleep, afraid of every sound, yet more afraid of stillness, terrified of darkness, yet more terrified at the approach of light. Y'all, I got chills while reading this again. Afraid of stillness, afraid at the approach of light. Y'all, if we are living in fear, then that is a mark usually that we are living in unforgiveness. That in the fear of what somebody else is going to do, fear of even our own selves. I had such a fear over myself for so many years. I was actually very afraid of this ego that was talked about in a very general term, and I was terrified that I would become this egotistical monster. And so I just never thought about myself, so that I would never actually come to like myself, and then potentially at the risk of cultivating an ego. And so I just completely hid from myself, and I allowed myself to be hidden from others too, because if I didn't know it, how could I ever help others to get to know it too? So my relationships were entirely one-sided. I sat in their experience. I never really had anything to offer or contribute other than trying to make them feel good, trying to make them feel loved. And y'all, we do this a lot for those who maybe err on the side of codependence, where we find our value then in how we make others feel. And we find our value in our meaning because we haven't taken the time to know ourselves. We find value in what they say about us. And therefore, we actually have no idea what's true and what's not. And so this concept of the unforgiving mind, those marks, those traits, man, that's really important that we actually know. We talk about this in business. What are the key performance indicators of success? The KPIs. So we need to know what the KPIs are, that the indicators that we're healthy, and also the indicators with when we're unhealthy. the marks of the unforgiving mind are often what we can look at and kind of observe in the mirror and say, oh, okay, I'm actually not doing well. I actually need to go and tend to myself, or I need to maybe even pull back and be quiet and go make sure that I'm well, because otherwise everyone around us suffers for our lack of knowledge and our lack of health. I'm just jumping here in the chat. Modern human being, good morning. Good to see you. Fallen star. Baljit, good morning. Fallen Star, I've actually never done martial arts, but it's so funny that you bring that up, because I was just talking with somebody. I've done one jujitsu class, and I was thinking about signing up and going for real. So maybe this is my sign that I'm supposed to. I really, really, really want to. So I'm curious for those. Actually, I'm curious for those of you who have done martial arts. I've heard that physical release can be so incredibly helpful, specifically for men, but I'm curious for others who have done a martial arts class course. Yeah, I'd be really, really curious. Look, martial arts came out again. Martial arts is two-sided. Okay, so I would love to know. This is so funny. I would love to know how people have engaged with martial arts in the past, and like what have the benefits been for you? Because I can only imagine how, the integration, we talk about the human intelligences, intellectual, emotional, spiritual, physical. So much of the goal here is that we actually have them all activated at the same time. So scrolling back up, Bajit, hello. Matthias, good morning to Sweden from the US. I'm so glad you're here. Charles, hello. Hi there. Forgiveness is not a denial of justice. I love that you said that. I'm so glad that you said that, because that is so, so, so true. And y'all, this is where it's actually really important that we understand what is my current, when I hear the word forgiveness, it's like word association, So like for me, for so many years, it was emotions equate to weakness. And if it's forgiveness means injustice, like what is your association with forgiveness? What's your current understanding of forgiveness that could very well prevent you from walking in it? Because so often we have a narrative, we have something that really kind of prevents us from being able to get to that place of either joy or peace, forgiveness. There's something that maybe happened in the past that we have a memory tied to that formed our understanding of that word, and perhaps even diluted it in the first place. So I love that point. Going back to the chat, Deuces, good morning. I'm glad to see you. Javid, hello. Good to see you. Eddie, thanks for joining. Yusuf, hello. George, good morning. 18 Marborn, hello. Robert, Exec, hello. The gifts of the Spirit are for service in the church. The fruits are for you. The gifts of the Spirit are for service in the church. The fruits are for you. Oh, I see what you're saying. Interesting. That's such a good point. I'm curious on the individual level for the gifts. I'm going to look into that. I've never thought about it from that way, but that's so interesting. Ed, Babine, good morning. Pain held and looked at always heals. Pain ran away from always destroys. That is so, so, so wise. 18 Maborn, how are you? I'm good. I'm so grateful. Honestly, I have to tell y'all, I'm really, really grateful for early mornings before the world wakes up and before even joining on here. I'm curious at what time everybody wakes up. Like, what's your morning routine look like? Because I've just found that, man, even waking up an hour earlier this morning, and I just feel so much more I feel so much more present. So I'd love to hear from you guys just what your morning routine is like, and what really has made the biggest impact for you in terms of your routine over the last 10 years, cultivating it maybe. What do you do in the morning, and what really helps you feel and engage in a present way in your life? So I'd love for whoever wants to answer that. I'd really love to hear. getting back here in the chat. Ricky, good morning. Good to see you. Boom Boom, hello. Bojan, hello. Panama. Maddie, good morning. Unforgiveness is like drinking poison and hoping the other person gets sick. Forgiveness does take a good amount of patience and time. Yuxin, that's so good. That's so true. Thank you. Good morning. Big Banana, good morning. Christine, good morning. Big Banana says, how do you deal with emptiness in the soul? What a beautiful question. How do you deal with emptiness in the soul? This is another one of those moments where I'd really love to hear others' response for this. Big Banana, I can speak to my experience of just that real emptiness. You know, it's funny. I actually have found that so often when I feel numb and when I feel that sense of emptiness, it's usually because there's like a trap door that I haven't gone through to get to the real pain that's been there. XX says, can the soul be empty? That's kind of what I'm alluding to. I wonder if maybe in this moment of the emptiness, it's because there hasn't been you haven't gone deep enough, maybe. You know, it's like, I know that when there's a numbness, when there's that apathy, usually that's like you've hit a wall, you've hit a point, and are we willing to push through and get to the other side, to push through it and get through the trap door and really allow for us to experience whatever's inside? Because usually there's something there. There's something that's been hidden, something that's been suppressed. And in the accessing it, the question then is, okay, what do I do with that? And in that process, that's where there's this biblical concept of pouring out your soul before the Lord. And that has been the thing that has really brought a lot of healing. You know, yes, going and talking with a counselor, and yes, talking and with friends and family and processing, but man, in the quiet, in the isolation of me behind a closed door and just pouring out my soul and like letting everything that's in there just come forth. Because when you are in that amount of pain, no one else knows our experience, but God does. It's really, it's wild. I even get chills as I say that. You know, the fact that we can be so known intimately and still so loved, therein lies comfort. You know, like, I remember one time, I think I was 17 years old, and I prayed. I was like, God, I'd really love to feel like you're giving me a hug right now. And just all of a sudden, I just felt this like warmth, you know, and just like this covering. MTB just asked, what am I watching? We're talking about, somebody asked the question, what do you do when you just are really experiencing the emptiness of the soul? And effectively when you're experiencing the dark night of the soul. And so when we get to the point of just being so apathetic and like we can't access pain almost, I think that actually is our sign to go deeper. You know, there's the human being, the emotional aspect of the human being is truly so much of what makes up the right hemisphere of the brain. And so if we're no longer accessing emotion, it's usually because there's something blocking it that we actually need to move through. Peace is not emptiness. It's okay to just rest. I love this. Cardinal Robert Serra has a great book called The Power of Silence and the Dictatorship of Noise. Focuses on silence. That sounds like a beautiful, beautiful book. Max, personal experience in Hinduism also exists. It's really beautiful, y'all. You know, the value of sitting in the silence, it transcends just one religion, you know, and I think therein even can offer some opportunity to almost like double click on it. Like, yeah, You know, a lot of folks from all over the world see value in this, regardless of religion. Rest is therapy. What a beautiful phrase. Rest is therapy. To let a calmness and accept it's enough. You don't have to go anywhere. Fire, that's so wise. Big Banana, I'm so grateful for you asking that question. It's okay to put the blinds and CD on the light switch. Yeah, there's so many examples when we are kind of at that point where it's like, just sleep, just eat, you know, kind of basic meeting our basic needs and just really like giving tender, loving care. I remember there was a time where I was attending a work event shortly after my husband left, and I went back to the hotel room after being with everybody, you know, pretending like everything was fine. And I came back to the hotel room and I was getting ready for bed, you know, washing my hands, and like when you weep, sometimes it's like grievous. It's coming from like deep within your soul. And I was like, I was having my hands on the sink, and I just remember having this thought that I was afraid the sink might break under the weight of just the weeping. And then it can look like, you know, that can be a hallmark of emptying out the soul in so many ways, pouring out the soul. And then another one is really to sleep and then to eat, and even laughter. I'm not sure how many of you have been through this kind of season, but in the dark night of the soul, there's also this heightened joy at times where it's like the relief from the grief can also juxtapose the depth that we went. And so I think it's actually really important to allow for the freedom to experience the range of emotions. Count of Saint Germain, I'm glad you're here. I really appreciate you, and I'm glad you're here. I would love for you to stay. And TK, I'm going to go ahead and just remove you, because it doesn't sound like you're being encouraging here. Seven Manouche, hello. Never take decisions and promises when you are too much happy or sad. What a good call. Oh my gosh, y'all, this is why I'm so grateful for this group, because we all get to add dimensions to this conversation, you know. Honestly, what you just said, don't make big decisions. You know, don't make big decisions when you're in that time of just real deep sorrow. You know, when you're and to your point, Manouche, when you're too happy or too sad, you know, just kind of wait until you're in that place of rest, maybe. So like getting back to peace and then make those decisions. So I thought that was just so wise. Yeah, I think women grieve and weep differently than men. Women are more in touch with what's going on inside. I wasn't for 28 years, but I learned. Cherubim, good morning. This channel is all about the cultivation of the human being. We talk about 4 intelligences: the intellectual intelligence, which for so many of us we've been cultivating since childhood; emotional intelligence, which constitutes the right hemisphere of the brain; and spiritual intelligence, and also physical intelligence, because our body stores data, it remembers things. And so we talk about the cultivation of each one of those. I feel like I haven't been able to find peace lately, Brooklyn says. I would love to know from y'all, you know, what are practices that bring peace to you? You know, what are the little things or big things that have been meaningful for you and it could just be over the last year or something you're just doing right now. But what are the things that really, truly have made an impact for you in your life that have allowed for you to access peace? Because here's the thing. If we are so externally sourced, where it's like, I'm looking to everyone around me for joy and meaning and hope and peace, well, now I can't actually produce any of it on my own. Now I am almost like addicted to the external stimulus to give me what I need. So how do we become internally sourced? Truth is the greatest practice for peace. Wow, Cherubim, that's so good. That is beautifully said. Viking Lloyd, peace. I love it. Good morning. Robert, good morning. The Count of Saint Germain, grief, I'm extremely familiar with. When I was 28, my brother was almost 32. He had Asperger's, and he never got what he deserved. Then my dad, then my brother. It's been a rough 15 years. Wow. Wow. When you were 28, all of that started. Good grief. I'm so sorry. I really, really am. I can't, especially to lose, oh my gosh, I just got chills, especially to lose your brother who has Asperger's, where I'm sure you felt like that sense of protection over him, and then to lose him. Wow. I don't think men grieve differently. Awakened men can feel deep. We are all human. To win anything, first you must think in your mind that you will win, Manoush says. Oh, that's really, really good. Nate Stevens. I need to tell her you said that. I enjoyed your conversation with Zoe one-on-one yesterday. Isn't she wonderful? For those of you who weren't here yesterday evening, my sister got on and we chatted, and it was really, really meaningful to just hear her perspective. She and I talk a lot and we're close, but to hear kind of like her Genesis story in so many ways of her beginning to start questioning God and the world and faith, and all of that's really, really, it can be really scary in so many ways, even to the point of, am I being powered by fear in this or powered by love? So I'm glad you were there, Nate. Viking Lloyd, just think of others before you act or speak. Forget about the practices. Barack says, I do have a darling. Miss Sean, I feel like that's not applicable to what we're talking about. So I'm going to go ahead and just put you on timeout. The Countess Saint Germain, they all left within 6 years of each other, and time keeps marching into the future. Wow, I'm the only one who remembers them. My son remembers my mom, but his memory of my brother and my father are foggy because he was young. Wow. I'm so sorry. Y'all, it really is so... The pain of loss is something, we're not taught how to grieve. We're not taught how to process pain. I'm just thinking about how much, we almost don't have access to our own self in so many ways because we don't know how to access like the recesses, the crevices of our own soul. Because especially we were talking earlier about the emptiness of the soul. And I think so often we actually think that there's not as much there because we just keep building layers and layers to protect ourselves from feeling the pain. But if we're willing to let ourselves feel the pain, there's a lot there to experience and to feel. Cherubim, yes. Is it possible to make an appointment with you for speaking? Yes, I will. I'll just give you. Let me see. I'll go to Cherubim. Go ahead and send me a message on Instagram or Facebook if you would, and then we can go from there. I've been counseling in grief, bereavement, deliverance, and suicide for 35 years, and my experience is that women are wired differently. I do believe that we're wired differently. I do wonder about, if people were able to get to those deep places, if they would, if men could be able to access grief that way. But I completely, honestly, you've been doing this for so long, and I'm like, teach me what you know. I don't think there's anything anyone can do about grief from the outside of the self unless you're necromancer. Wow, I haven't seen that word in a very long time. But truly, it really is so true. It is like, how deep am I willing to go? What's the work and the degree of pain that I'm willing to experience for the amount of healing that comes on the other side of that? Jake, good morning. Yummy Jerry, we talk about the cultivation of the human being, and effectively for the purpose of creation and healing and freedom. The more we actually know ourselves, the more we're actually free from the chains of the past, the chains of even what other people think, and we can really walk in freedom here and now in the present, but also create from this place of authentic knowledge of ourselves. Because if we're not sourcing from an authentic place, we actually end up just being a carbon copy of everybody around us. Yeah, Viking Lloyd says, just understand your actions and words affect others. That's like the hallmark of responsibility in so many ways. I sit with my feeling, I don't get distracted, and I evaluate what are the lies I tell myself and what is the truth. I don't let myself be influenced by anyone or by entertainment. I seek the truth of the soul. Wow, that was first, Alex, that was beautifully stated. And second, that is like, it's almost like deep mastery in some ways, like really being able to master knowledge of self to then say, okay, I'm going to evaluate what are the lies. I'm going to evaluate what am I telling myself that's true. And then keeping that influence at bay. For me, it's an ongoing thing. Like I subconsciously am impacted. And so it's like bringing that awareness back into it. And that's the very first part of emotional intelligence, is the ability to be aware and then to understand, convey, and control one's own emotions. Yes, it's rough when there's no one to ask the opinion of or for advice or how to do something that only my father knew. But the worst thing is a statement, hey, do you remember when? Wow. Because no one does. Man. Count of St. Germain, it's so much grief there. I'm so sorry. Wow. Rob Vine, good morning. I'm glad you're here. Byron, good morning. Viking Lloyd. I know. It is very, very bright. All right. There we go. Should close your blinds. All right, scrolling down. Viking Lloyd says, well, when your wife says eat, you eat. That's so funny. The Count of St. Germain, I think that's where it's like, where are those people, And I think it's so important to have a community where you can talk about the past. The thing that's so interesting is the past like my husband left, it'll be 5 summers ago. And 2 weeks ago, somebody asked me about it, and I've healed a lot. And the other week, I found myself processing it all over again. It was so devastating. And I've still healed a lot. And so I think that there is something around allowing for, it's like, I've heard of grief as waves, and over time, the waves still come, but there's just greater distance between them coming and crashing. And perhaps even now, in the many years later, I can actually sense when it is coming up, rather than being so taken by surprise. And so in that element of grief, there's maybe more, again, this is the emotional intelligence, being aware of, that's the first step, understanding, but then controlling. Now I feel much more in control of my emotions. Because I'm aware of them now coming up when I feel the grief over him leaving. And then I can be understanding of them and then have control over them and then convey them to somebody else. I also, y'all, this is why, the knowing community, I literally am hiring someone to help me build it out, because I haven't had the time like I thought. And I'm really, really excited to build out a place where we can talk about the past. I'm even thinking of having a space dedicated to the past where, we can talk about it for the purpose of, the more we pour out the soul, we're releasing it, we're actually getting it out, not getting out the memories, but the grief that can just be overwhelming. It like can feel like it's suffocating us. And so in the moving through the emotion, in pouring it out, we then are able to get to the other side of that grief, that wave. We kind of have to ride the wave and move through it to get to the other side. And then we experience the freedom that comes from it. So Y'all, thank you so much. I really appreciated this conversation this morning. It was really meaningful to hear from y'all and get to know y'all more. And I'm hopeful that the Knowing community will be able to be launched by the end of May. That's my hope. And then my book will be this summer. So many things to work on. But thank you all so much for joining. I really appreciate learning from y'all and growing with you. And it's all about expanding, our current intelligence, speaking of, and learning from each other and your experience, my experience, and just going for it from there. So, oh my gosh, Nate Stevens says I could build it out with Claude AI in an afternoon. Dude, what's the app? Pulsia? My friend just built an entire website yesterday. So I know. I know with Claude AI, it's just insane. It's insane what can be done. So I know that I need to, for me, I just need to take like dedicated number of hours to sit and do it. So I'm hoping to do that in the next week or two, but I'm like very excited for the support. Y'all, thank you. Oh, I can't find your Facebook. Okay, let me just drop the link to my Facebook. Let's see. Here we go. All right. Did you get that? Let me try posting it in YouTube directly. Okay, there we go. Hopefully you can click on that. All right, y'all, have a wonderful, wonderful evening. I won't be going live this evening or the weekend, but I'll be in the evening, but I'll be going live again tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. So have a wonderful night. I hope you have just today, May 1st, maybe y'all just really, really live well today. This is the first day of the month. For those of you who said you wanted to do the 61-day challenge, I'm kicking mine off today, along with those who are doing it. It's just a small group. So if you guys want to sign up, the goal is that we're actually really, really going to be doing the work and supporting each other who is doing the work along with us. So for those of you who want to join, it's totally free. It's just give me your phone number and your name and phone number, and then I'll go ahead and add you to the WhatsApp group, and we just keep each other accountable there. So let me know. But y'all have a wonderful, wonderful day. I will talk to you soon and see you tomorrow.